Our next speaker is a litigation paralegal during his free time, so he's here to settle the argument on what progress is. So Charles, what do the philosophers say about progress?
After philosophy. If you couldn't tell, I'm a philosophy nerd and I love it. I'm about to empower all of your minds through philosophy. I love empowering people with that very part. Now, what do I love empowering? Well, I love particularly political philosophy. That's where my major is really concentrated. I spend over 6 hours a week, 6 hours a day, 12 hours a week, in political philosophy classes. And one of the central issues that we always debate about is justice. I'm sure if I go around the room of 100 Americans, I will get 200 opinions on what they think, across a breadth of issues. But I'm going to focus in on just a couple. I'm sure if I ask each and every one of you what your stance is on abortion, I'm sure I'll get thousands of opinions. I'll get people defending their opinion. I'll get people attacking other opinions. I'll get people who cannot stand hearing other opinions. But the truth of the matter is, most of us probably didn't take what the other perspective had to say into account. So let's go into it. In the 1970s, the Supreme Court, it was argued that a woman had a right to do whatever she'd like to her body, and the government had no right in saying she's allowed to or she isn't. Well, in my very first semester here, in one of my philosophy classes, this argument was brought up. My professor pointed out how that argument is flawed. That professor said, if you, in today's modern technology, remove the fetus from the woman, put the fetus in this pregnancy simulator, and the fetus grows up, it matures, becomes a baby, and then a person, was the woman's objective achieved? She debated in the Supreme Court that the right to her body was the right for her to have that fetus removed. And that was done. But now we have a new person. Is that what she was trying to achieve? This professor said no. This professor said at least some of the women who want to go ahead and terminate a pregnancy want to terminate the potentiality of life. I know when I had my stance on abortion, I didn't take that into account. Truth be told, we're probably really near the days where we have a pregnancy simulator. There's the abortion case. I had to reconsider. It was through a different perspective. Then we go on to October 9th, 2012. That's a picture of Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan, who is shot in the face coming home on her school bus simply because she was a female getting an education. A Taliban terrorist came on the bus and had no mercy. Her punishment was death, and maybe being shot in the face while she's at it. Well, that brings me to the next point, the death penalty. Do people think if we apprehend, try, and convict these criminals, we might want to give them the death penalty? Why not? It's the worst penalty we can give a person. The death penalty is debated amongst different countries. The European Union and Canada outlaw it. The US, some states have it. But it is constantly challenged in the world forum. But then I ask you, you have your opinions on the death penalty. Did you consider other perspectives? Is that justice? Well, the death penalty, it plays on a fear we all share. And we're scared of it. So we just sentence people to death because we think that's the worst, just because we don't know what happens. Why do you think we're scared to go into a dark room? We don't know if there's another person there, if there's the boogeyman, if we don't know if, someone's waiting to trip us. We don't know. We're scared. But then I ask you this. In prison, people are put on suicide watch. Clearly, life imprisonment is worse than the death penalty. I'm no one to say what you should think, but I think life imprisonment's the thing that's supposed to be debated here, not the death penalty. The death penalty seems to be that they have it easy. That's another perspective. It changed my opinion on the death penalty. Maybe it's not the worst you can have for a criminal. So I ask you, what's justice? Plato, ancient Greek philosopher, would be very upset if I didn't provoke thought, but I did. And more recently, thankfully Malala Yousafzai addressed the United Nations General Assembly. She met with the first family of the United States of America. And most recently, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. She came full circle. Her idea of justice was to get back at the terrorists where they can get hurt the most, offering public assistance. But that's not going to help us solve where we stand on the death penalty and abortion. There is a philosopher by the name of John Rawls. He wrote over a 600-page book in the 1970s, Harvard University professor in philosophy. In a nutshell, he explains, you are person number one. You're behind a veil of ignorance. You don't know your race, your class, your gender, your sexuality, your income, anything that matters to you. You have absolutely no conception of the good. You're setting up a society of values, of laws. Would you set up a society that's racist? Clearly you won't, because you never know. Once the veil is lifted, you can be a low-income person who's discriminated against. A value that you're sure to come out with is equality. So by employing this theory of justice, John Rawls says, is how you achieve it. You achieve true justice by doing that. So I ask you, what is your theory of justice? Thank you.